Hello, it is April 2nd. We are in GoPro. We're doing chapters 5 and 6 today. And Amy, the grandma with the most, says she spent the night with the twins, helping so mama could sleep, and she's here. And my life is a wild ride today. And I'm just like, yeah, but we're doing this. We're plugging in. We're locking it in, and we're gonna chat about chapters 5 and 6, which were really good.
I'm all
Uh,
about keeping commitments that I made to myself right now because that's what professionals do.
I love it.
And I
Keeping
don't like
commitments
the
we
way
make to
that I
ourselves.
feel when I don't show up for myself. So here
Yes.
I am.
Yes. Okay. Chapter 5 is skill number 2, inviting prospects to understand your product or opportunity. So remember, this book was written before the internet. Well, I mean, we had the internet, but this really isn't for social media use so much. What I love about this book and why I think this needs to be the first book you read is so much of the language, and they go into the language a lot in chapter 6 and in chapter 5 both. But understanding the way people think and the way to talk to them is going to help you online or offline. So don't get too in the weeds if you're like, I don't talk to real people. You would never talk like that. But I mean, if a person was like, I don't meet face to face, I'm just building online, this is still very valuable information. Yesterday I was running around like, it's been wild, you guys. We're not going to go into all the wildness, but we've got company, we've got, it's been crazy. Um, and I was listening because Amy said, I listened to chapter 5 over and over. And I was like, I should do that. And so I just on my iPad played I went to YouTube, and then I found the chapter 5 section and just listened to it while I'm driving around, and it's fun. My son has started doing door-to-door sales. He sells bug stuff, and he's now building a team. And my nephew is going to work with him this summer. And so my nephew was in the car with me. I'm like, I'm sorry, I got to listen to this. Like, I got to get this in my brain. And then we're driving around, and I'm like, wait, this is the information he needs. He's like, no, it's fine. And I could tell he was listening. Um, there's such gold in here. I don't know. Was there stuff that really like stood out to you, Amy, in chapter 5?
There was before I pulled an all-nighter. So I'm trying to remember. I should have turned it on again today while I was making my coffee.
No, you're good. I listened to it and I read it, and then I'm underlining. And one of the concepts, well, there's a lot of great things I think we should talk about. But one, he talks about hunting. And I think that's a big thing that you talk about is that difference between hunting and fishing. And it feels very different, and it's very different actions and the energy that you have, and then the energy people have towards you, very different. On page 40 it is. He says right in the middle, I tried everything. I was like a hunter with the goal of bagging an elephant. I went around with a gun, opportunity in my hand, and shot at everything that moved. I didn't really care about relationships. All I cared about was getting that new recruit. My attitude was, some will, some won't, so what next? Have you heard that saying? I've
Yes.
heard it a lot. I've said it,
Yeah.
but that some will, some won't, so what? And it's easy to go into that mode at times. And it's like for me, when I have this big goal, and that big goal makes me a little more desperate, and I'm like in hunting mode. And then I'm just like, oh, nope, they're not in. Fine. Next. But what we're like, I was in hunting mode, but then I put a bunch of these people I was hunting into a fish tank. Now I'm like, let's go fishing with those people and just love on them. And the goal is to be a great person. I think those people would like to do what I do. I want to stay connected to them. And if they don't ever, no biggie. Like, I'm not going to be upset about that. They didn't sign some commitment or something. I just said, I think those would be a great fit. I want to stay in touch. And who knows how I'll work with those people in the future. It might be with LifeVantage. It might be they buy a course from me. It might be I buy a course from them. I don't know. We'll see how things go.
So what I do like about this, some will, some won't. So what? Someone's waiting. And then the next part, I think it's good for us to sometimes think that way because we're sharing it with people and some will and some won't. Like it's
Yeah.
good to have that perspective, but not so much the so what next perspective because you can continue to drip on them. You can, be a service to them in whatever capacity that you can, and maybe someday they will be a customer or a consultant on your team. But either way, they're still a human and we should care about them and
Yes.
take care of them. But also keeping in mind, like, yes, share with everybody because some will and some won't. I think that's a good perspective as long as we don't just like throw them by the wayside if they're
Right.
interested.
I feel like it's like what you're saying, it's like detaching from the results.
Yeah.
Right. And I think he talked about that later, like not taking that so personal. Um, and he just talked about like learning to change to that relationship building and looking for that time to be able to share with them, right? And as he said, the other thing I noticed with professionals, they didn't pitch their product or opportunity. Instead, when the timing was appropriate, they just invited people to do one of two things based on the individual prospect situation. And those one of two things were either invite them to a team situation, like an event, a meeting, something like that, or to watch a tool. And I love, he talks so much about that. He says, for building a large and duplicating organization, I found that a tool is a better first step. Remember, our goal is education and understanding. And I think when we go about like creating our social media, when we think about that, like education and understanding, education and understanding. He talked about some different things in his past, like tools that he used. This is a long chapter, so I'm just gonna read to you some of the highlighted things. We won't really go into questions too much, but Amy's like, my brain is a mess. I was up all night. I'm like, oh, girl, I struggled to go to sleep. I woke up upset. Okay, Lord, but it's gonna work out. We're gonna be fine. We're gonna make it through. Um, One thing I love, he says, by adopting this new approach, my organization finally broke out and I was able to enjoy the experience of having a group that grew with or without me. And he was just talking about using tools. And we're going to talk about that some more actually right here. He says, as a professional, you're going to be inviting your prospect to review a tool or attend an event. Here's what you're not going to be doing. You're not going to be pitching people and trying to dazzle the world with your wisdom. That approach will feed your ego, but steal from your bank account. I love it.
It's so hard to not
I
fall
think,
into that.
I think you could say this really well, saying like that will feed your ego, but starve your bank account.
Yes.
Like, and it's such a trap. And I've seen so many people, they don't even get started in the business because they start thinking that they have to know all the answers and be razzle McDazzle. And people, and what he talks about in here is there's two problems. One, people know you're not an expert. So when you try and all of a sudden become one, they're like, this is weird. Or it's like people don't, if you're a genius, they're like, well, I can't do what he did. Right. And so you got to make it so that people are like, oh, I can do this. My hair is so wild today. Guys,
That's
driving me.
okay.
I should put a filter on. Oh, I think that's called a hat. I just put a hat on. Oh,
What I
there you
loved
go.
about these two chapters was just the encouragement to play the long game and not so much to like take a step back and chill. Like you're continuing to do the things on a daily basis, but you do it as a professional. Like in, I think it was chapter 6, he talked about how he practiced his presentation over and over and over. He said it out loud until it just came out naturally. Um, and I like the idea of putting effort in to learn, like your craft,
Yeah.
and not just like run out and spit words out at people, but really like be prepared with your invitation and think about the people and what is the compliment for the people and prepare your invites and your presentation. So I just think it's important that as professionals we study and learn and practice and prepare ourselves.
I love that. I think he talks about that really well at the end of chapter 6, which we'll get to in a second about like how he prepares. And I think, talking about that, some will, some won't. So what? A couple other phrases that I hate. One is you can never say the wrong thing to the right person, and you can't say the right thing to the wrong person. And I'm just like, I disagree. Like, I have vomited on people that would have loved this. And I've stood too far back and not pursued people that were slightly interested, but my ego or whatever got in the way. And I think, like learning these skills, exactly like you're saying, learning how to be a professional and how to share these things. And that's, I have a little assignment for us at the end of this that, it's going to help us so much, to become those professionals. So he's talking about oh, and the other one is just go get 5 more. Well, yes, if you already have your systems in place, if you're already emotionally mature and you're doing well with the team you're bringing in 5 more will work. But if you're a jerk, if you're lazy, if you're missing in action, going and getting 5 more people, it's just going to be this never ending cycle. And so while like I was whining the other day, and my husband said, Melissa, I think you just need to go recruit. I think if you recruited a few more people, that would like solve your problems. And I'm like, I think you're actually absolutely right. Have you been talking to Marcel? So annoying. But yeah, like it's like that the bucket. And if the holes in the bottom of the bucket are too big, it doesn't matter how many you're recruiting.
Yeah.
Okay. Talk about emotions. Those are the fundamentals. Let's take a moment to talk about the emotions of inviting. Here are 4 basic rules. Rule number 1, this is on page 46. Emotionally detach yourself from the outcome, which we talked about. If you focus on education and understanding, you'll have fun and your prospects will enjoy the experience. And he says, make sure we're not hunters, we're not sharks. Our job is to educate people. And he talks about this like different ways to approach inviting. And when you are more like, here's the info, like if you're not super invested, if they say yes or not, it changes the dynamic so big. When you're like, I need you to sign up to meet my goal tonight. People are like, that's weird. Okay. Rule number 2, be yourself. So many people become a different person when they start inviting. Be yourself. Rule number 3, bring passion. And rule number 4, have a strong posture. I loved what he said on the top of 48. He says, be yourself, but be a bolder self. Be yourself, but be a stronger self. Be yourself, but be a more confident self, at least when you're inviting. I found I could do that for a short period of time at the beginning, and just like building a new muscle, I could eventually do it longer and longer until it became a part of me. Okay, so then he talks about his formula for inviting. Step 1, be in a hurry. Like I gotta go. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't want to lie, but I will manipulate a situation. Like I'll be like, I'm gonna call them when I'm about to walk out the door. Like, okay, you got this, Melissa, you got this. I'm like, hey, I just have a second. I'm walking out, but blah blah blah. Step 2, compliment the prospect. It needs to be authentic. Okay. And there is such a fine line, and you're going to have to each of us is going to have to mess with this a little bit. If you're gushing and you're like, oh my, you're just the most brilliant person I've ever, like, there's just this weird posturing thing that needs to be there. And if you're too gushy, it looks like you're desperate and you're looking at them with dollar signs. And people want to build their business. They don't want to build your business. But if you're just like, you're arrogant, some people will be drawn to that. But the really healthy ones will not. So, be like, I think you'd be great at this because you love people. I've seen how hard you work and like you went to college, put yourself through college. Like if you can do that, girl, you can do anything, right? Like a legit compliment that you would give someone. Make the invitation. And I love, he says that if I would you, that is some of the excellent wording in here. You need to be in this chapter. Step 5, confirmation 1, get the time commitment. Step 6, confirmation 2, confirm the time commitment. Confirmation 3, schedule the next call. And then step 8, get off the phone. Do you have anything to add to that part?
I did. So like when we're prospecting a person, again, I don't like the word, but it's the word. I think it's important to really be honest, and we are trying to give them something that's amazing. We're trying to share a business that's super amazing. So like not trying to build my team or get a new recruit. Like how can you think about that person and be like, this person would be really good at this because anybody can learn if they want to, and also they need this for this and this reason. But like really going on the other side of I'm not trying to grow my team or just recruit another person. Like how is this going to benefit the other person?
Yeah. People care about themselves. Like
Mhm.
some people really care about you. Like maybe your mom is like, oh, I want to do that to help you. But
Yeah.
yeah, figuring
And
that
I
out.
think that comes too from, building a team of just trying to get anybody and everybody in, and then you realize not anybody and everybody is going to do the work. Not anybody and everybody is somebody you want to spend all your time with, and some people just suck your time. So like really being real about who you want on your team, and then thinking about how this is a benefit to them, not you.
Yeah. Okay. We're gonna just sort of talk about the approaches to inviting. Starts on page 52. He's like the direct approach, indirect approach, and the super indirect approach. Examples from warm market prospects. When you told me you hated your job, were you serious or are you just kidding around? Like, I think I found a way, maybe this could be for you, blah, blah, blah. Like somebody right? It's a great something like that. Or have you ever thought of diversifying your income? Do you keep your career options open? Do you plan on doing what you're doing now for the rest of your career? I love when people tell me, I love to ask people, like, what do you do? And then I usually ask people, do you love it? Because, like, I have like, if somebody was like, I'm an accountant, I'd be like, oh, like my natural instinct is like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
right? But then it's like, but some people love it. So I love to
Yeah.
ask, like, do you love it? And then they tell me yay or nay or whatever, and they go
Mhm.
into detail about it. And so then that helps me to know where we're at. And because sometimes what we have could be an addition to something if they love what they're doing. But if they're like, gosh, no, I don't love it. I want to do something else, but I don't know what to do. Or, it's like,
Yeah.
girl, you should work with me. We have lots of fun.
Yeah.
Um, okay, then it says the indirect approach. This is another powerful tool. Because of my lack of credibility, he's talking about him at 23. He didn't go far with the direct approach because, he didn't have credibility.
Mhm.
Um, but this worked well for him. He would say, I've just started a new business and I'm really nervous. Before I get going, I need to practice on someone. Would you mind if I practiced on you? Um, I don't have much experience. Would you look at it for me if I made it easy on you and let me know if you think I'm making the right move? These things are great ideas. Again, for me, the integrity part, you're going to have to work on this. So some people, sometimes you are actually practicing. And it's like, could I practice on you? Like, if you actually are practicing, practice on them. And they still might sign up. Like, we're not going into the practice thinking they're not going to sign up. Like, if they see what you saw, they want what you want, right?
Mhm.
Um, but if you're a pro, you've been doing this for 5 years and you're like, can I practice on you?
Yeah.
That might feel weird. And people be
Mhm.
like, what? Haven't you been doing this for 5 years? Um, but what I like to do is like, I would love for you to know what I do. Can I share with you this so that if anybody came across your path, like you could give me a referral? Like I've said to people, like I know you love what you do and you're busy, but I absolutely love what I do. I think you would like a lot of it. I just don't know if you have time for it right now. And I find people are like, yeah, sure, I'd love to, and they drop their guard and they look at it, and again, they're like, wait, what?
Yes.
You show them the facts, they see the ABC prime time, and they're like, well, maybe I am interested in this, right? Um, okay, and then the
So when I
super.
was first getting started, the practice thing is really how I built my business. I can't really do that anymore because I've been here too long, but I can do like what you're saying. But I think it's so beneficial to like teach your new person. Like ask your people if you can practice on them, because then when you get to the part that's uncomfortable, you can say, I want to share this with you. I'm practicing, and you can still share the business and the income and get better at your presentation, but also they're hearing the information. And I think it really takes a lot of pressure off of you and them, because they don't feel like you're selling to them, you're practicing on them. But then I did find a lot of my initial consultants and customers that
Yeah.
way because they were open to listening to my presentation.
And you could take your coach or mentor with you to that practice.
Mhm.
It's like, can I practice on you? Like, I'm gonna bring my mentor. They're just gonna coach me after. But then that person's there to answer questions too. It works out really well. So like,
Yeah.
I'm learning this information. I want to bring him, like he'll help fill in any holes, but it would be really good for me to practice on you, and then having you there, that third party, because especially it's like the person's going to practice, then the other people are going to be like, oh, well, like, what about this? And then you're going to be like, maybe you know it, but then you're like, and then your shotgun person right there can just answer all that stuff for you and really help. It's a great system to use.
So
And then the
this is
soup.
what you can tell me how you what you think of this, but I have always felt like I couldn't wait for somebody else to build my team, and other people are busy. So I went out and did a lot of presentations on my own. But then I was practicing and I was like, can I get my mentor on the phone to answer any questions that you have and just to like evaluate, how I shared the information with you, kind of thing. So you would still try to get a third party on the phone, but I just couldn't wait and schedule everything with my prospect and my team leader. And so it was really hard for me. And I was just like, if I want this to work, I have to do the work and then find a way to get that third party in there too.
Yeah. Um, Two options. One is just using the Facebook group as your third party and just saying, oh, that's great. Here's a video. I'll tag you on a video. I'll send you this. You want to get them in. And a big part of what you just said that I would just change, and it's the same thing with the Facebook group. I don't say, can I add you to this Facebook group? I say, I'm going to add you to this Facebook group. It answers the questions. Here's the thing. And with calling your person, so you can, like, if you're going into a meeting, like, oh, one of my friends who's in another company, he taught me this. I was like, oh my gosh, it's genius, thank you. He said whenever he's about to go meet with somebody, he has a group chat with 3 mentors, and he says, I'm going in for a meeting right now, who'd be available for a third party call? And then somebody will answer him, right? So then when he's in the meeting, and then it's like, oh, and I mean, even Marcel, he says, oh, great question. I'm going to call Jason. He knows all the answers for that. Um, and Marcel's not saying, I don't know the answer. Like, even if you know the answer, great question. I'm going to call blah, blah, blah. They can answer that really well for you. If you ask your person there permission, I've never had someone say, yeah, sure.
Right.
They're like, no, don't bother them. They don't want to bother them. They don't want to get pressured into a sale. This is what people are very afraid of, is like you're bringing the closer on the phone,
Yeah.
right? But we're not. We're just bringing someone else that can answer these questions. And it's, I was talking to a girl the other day who's just crushing it right now. And I said, what do you think the secret to your success right now is. And one of the things is she said that like her upline had been there in her house doing meetings and stuff for her. And I said, great job, because it's so weird. We want to be this expert and we're just learning, right? But one of the gals on my team, she's a nurse. I go to her family's house. We do a meeting. I'm not a nurse. I'm not a scientist. I don't have a college degree, right? And I'm explaining this stuff that she's already explained to them. And they're looking at me like, "Oh, okay, we're in. Yes." And and I feel bad for my friend that's a nurse. It's like they should have just listened and believed her, but they needed someone else. And even though I didn't have the degree or whatever, it was just another voice. It was somebody from the outside. And for whatever weird reason, people will drop their guard and they'll hear that better. Um, and so it's the human ego, and the more we can just like not let that thing get in the way, the better we're gonna build this business.
Yeah.
So, I'm glad we did this. Thank you, Amy. Okay. The if I would you, and I'm not gonna read. This is a long chapter. You want to read this, okay? You want to understand those principles. They are vital. And then confirming the time. And then at the very end, I loved this on page 66, the last page of chapter 5. Remember, in recruiting, there are no good or bad experiences, just learning experiences. And if you think about your entire business that way, you're going to do really well. Like, okay, learn, do, review, and it's like, what's happening there? What can I tweak? How can I make this a little better, a little better? And it's not thing's not going to be beautiful, but the more meetings you do, especially the faster you do them, you're just going to learn faster. You're going to be like, oh, I run into that same question 3 times. I handled it crappy the first time. I got better the second time. I know how to do it really well the third time.
Yeah.
Right. It's just that kind of stuff. So it is nice that if you can get as much of that done in your first couple of months, just like we had a meeting last night talking about like boundaries and things like that. And really, if you can say for the first few months, say, I'm going to put a lot of my life on pause right now, and I'm going to focus on this business. I need to get some skills down. You can really kind of hammer it out, and your just education is going to go much faster by doing that. But you can't ignore the rest of your life, a year, 2 years,
Right.
10 years, 14 years. Okay, chapter 6, presenting your product or opportunity to the prospects. And we're already at a half hour. So I'm gonna this is a shorter one. I'll tell you, the pros use tools instead of their own wisdom, which is what we've already talked about. Again, let the third-party resource provide the information. The pros bring passion, enthusiasm, excitement, and belief. Okay, that's your job, is to bring those things. And then you let the tool do the explaining. People are, and then I love just talking about learning your story. And this is really what I want us to work on. Getting your story very clear. But he says, people aren't interested in how much you know, but they are interested in your story, as long as you don't bore them to death with it. Okay, like he wrote that. I quadruple underlined it. Sorry, we're backwards, upside down. I don't know. This over here. It needs to be short and sweet. Okay. We won't talk about, and then I asked somebody to share their story one time, and then they were like, and then on Thursday at 4 p.m., I felt the difference. And I'm like, friend, we gotta hustle this along, And my first meeting that I did was so long and so terrible. Thankfully, only one person showed up to it. So bad. And I remember my mentor was there, and I was like, what do you think? And he's like, Mom, it wasn't too bad. And I'm like, do not lie. You are lying to me.
Yeah.
Like, give me constructive feedback here. I want to get better. But I gave myself constructive feedback, and we let go a lot of the science and started getting more clear. Okay. Page 71 talks about your personal story. This is what you need to know. Well, let me just give you his example real quick. He said, "Hi, my name is Eric Worre, and I'm a retired underachiever. I had 18 jobs by the age of 23 and was starting to think my future wasn't looking so good. I was embarrassed by my lack of results, and I was desperately looking for a way to make something of my life. In January of 1988, I was introduced to network marketing, and it has changed my life. Instead of being afraid for the future, now I'm excited about it." And then he said, and then I would insert whatever was appropriate based upon my current levels of success. Um, the theme of his story was if I could do it, anyone could do it. And it worked. I use it all the time in hotel meetings and home meetings, on three-way phone calls, on conference calls, you name it. No matter what your background is, you can craft a compelling personal story. I found every good story has 4 elements. Okay, this is vital. Your background, the things you didn't like about your background, how network marketing or your company came to the rescue. And if you're like, well, it hasn't really rescued me yet, it's your vision of how it is going to. Okay. It's your belief that it is going to. And then your results or how you feel about your future. So, for me, like I was thinking about this, I'm like, I want to get this so much clearer and really, really nail my thing. And especially like for my target market. And I was just thinking, like, my background is I love business. I'm a entrepreneur junkie. I'm an obsessive entrepreneur, but I was trading time for dollars. I wanted freedom. I wanted to be able to make a massive income while helping my friends also create income at the same time. Like I wasn't just satisfied with me building a business. I wanted to help my friends build businesses too. So this was a perfect fit. I was able to work from anywhere and help my friends build businesses too. I was just on the phone with one of my friends this morning talking about a business idea. She's like, I was like, I got to talk to you now. And she's like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I just got an idea. I got an idea. So, like each of our stories is going to be different, but that really is mine. I wanted to stop trading time for dollars. I wanted to have leveraged income, and I wanted to get rewarded for coaching other people to do the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it says, take time to create your story and start telling it every chance you get. That is one of the things, like we talked about Jennifer Polk earlier and how she meets everybody, but that's one of her things is she has honed in. Maybe we should have a guest person on this little talk. Actually, we'll do that next week. And she works hard to get her story into meeting every new person. And people are like, wait,
awesome.
what? And then she's like at the doctor's office, she tells them her story. And now she's got a meeting with the nurse and the secretary and go girl. I don't know how you do it. But honestly, this is how she does it. And she is a master student of Eric Worre. Like she spent a lot of time at his house. She has paid for a lot of mastermind stuff with him and has worked very closely with him. So it makes sense that is her thing. So after that, he started, like he recorded that and listened to it over and over, and just got it better. And he said, after I was done, I played it back and it was terrible. This was what I found the first time I did a Facebook Live challenge. Okay. My friend said, let's do this Facebook Live. I said, okay, let's do it. And I showed it to my friends and they go, that isn't you. I was like, what? And they're like, no. And this was it. I watched it back. It was terrible. My voice had no energy. I was boring. I hated it. So I recorded it again and again until it was acceptable. In the end, I had an audio cassette and with my presentation on it, and I listened to it over and over in my car. I bet I listened to it 500 times. Okay, that's the presentation. I guess I skipped part of that. I was going to tell you about that. But that was with my Facebook Live. I realized, like, talking to the camera, you just have to be a little extra. Like, and I think when I'm really excited in person, I talk like this too.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I'm really tired and I'm like, oh, it's like, what do you want for dinner? I don't know. I don't care. Whatever. I do talk like that occasionally, but that sucks on camera. Like nobody wants to watch that. They're like, they don't like it when they're like that themselves. They surely don't want to watch somebody else be like that. And so, yeah, but he was talking, sorry, I missed that. That was a good part of this chapter was he found a top person who gave a wonderful presentation, and he listened to it and he wrote it down on a notebook paper, and then he memorized it and he recorded it, and then he fixed it, got it better and better and better. He said he told the same jokes, he did the same thing. Like, this guy was the top earner and told the exact same presentation. And it gets boring doing that. But just look at your bank account and be like, okay, I got this. We can do this. Okay. But just
Mhm.
doing that same thing over and over. And like, I know I've met one person, and I met her on the Africa trip, who told me a very, very similar story. And she's now a master presenter and made the trip to Africa and is crushing it. But when we're talking about being a professional, how many people would listen to an overview, write notes, record themselves, and listen to that over and over and over? Like, if you want to be a professional, that's what you do. If you don't want, if you just like, I don't want to do that. Okay, don't.
Mhm.
Don't have other people do your presentations. But when you're ready to be like, I'm going to lead a team, I'm going to do this. Like, I want to be a professional. I want to be at the front of the room. Like, I'll tell you what, we used to do 2 Zooms a week, for my people. And the whole time, for the first 9 months, probably, I was sitting there taking notes. I wrote that presentation, and I hadn't read this thing, but I know for me, my brain works best if I take notes, like while I listen. And so I wrote it down. I wrote it down. I wrote it down. And if you hear me give a presentation, it sounds 90% like what my mentor, how he gives his presentation, and it's just because I heard it over and over. And some stuff I'd be like, when some people would ask me questions like, what does that mean? I'm like, it's a great question, because I don't know that I exactly knew what every bit meant, but
Yeah.
I knew how to say it.
Yeah.
But it was like, oh, I should know what that means. And,
Yeah.
and now I do, but it
I
took
did that
time.
too. Like in the beginning, they say the people in front of the room are the people making the money. I joined the business to make money. So I was like, this is what I got to do to make money. So I did the same. Like, I listened to a presentation over and over. I stopped it. I wrote it down word for word. And then I made bullet points on 3x5 cards. And I did my presentation with 3x5 cards and a whiteboard every time. And what was on my 3x5 cards is what I wrote on the whiteboard every time. I wish I could find all those. I have stashed them somewhere or threw them away. But I need to do that again, actually.
Still love on the whiteboard, I would do it like fill in the blank. So,
Mm,
because I realized when I would turn around to write on the whiteboard, it would really slow my presentation down. So I started in the beginning, I would write certain words, and then I would just kind of fill in the blank later, because
mm,
some people really, they need that visual,
mm.
and you don't always have like a PowerPoint to do. And PowerPoints, I don't know. I kind of like I kind of like a dry erase board better.
I do too. I'm old school, but like it's become so like, oh my word, they have a whiteboard. That's so that's so 2 decades ago or something. But
Well, and it's weird, like how we're used to screens now.
Mhm.
And I saw this phenomenon at our church. I did this like after school thing, right? And these kids, um, we had an upstairs and a downstairs for the church. And we had half the kids upstairs and half downstairs. And the kids upstairs were looking at what was going on live. And then the kids downstairs could see on the screen what was going on live, but they were like having snack or something. I can't remember exactly what was doing. I just remember watching, and those kids paid attention better to the screen than they did to the people up on the stage
Mhm.
when they were, and I'm like, that is the weirdest thing.
Mhm.
So I don't know if we're all like that now. It's like, a lot of times, look, when I am at a big conference, or at church I tend to look at the screen over here more than the person on the stage.
Mhm.
I don't know. So,
So
uh, you
what I
know,
love about whiteboard presentations is that you can do it anywhere. And if you
mm,
have your presentation down, you can do it
yeah.
on a napkin. Like it's the same. And when you rely on technology, like I very much rely on my slideshow now, or deck or whatever it's called. When you rely on that and it doesn't work, then you're just kind of blank. And yes, it's all there. We could bring it up, but you don't have those clues.
Yeah. But I mean, you could figure out how to put your slideshow on your phone or an iPad or something like that too. And um it is that having a slideshow keeps me focused sometimes, like if people are asking a lot of questions and like
Mhm.
interrupting, which I want them to, like I want them to interact, and if that like yeah, especially if it's one-on-one.
Yeah.
Um, but then the slideshow's like, oh yeah, I don't want to forget to tell you about
Bring
this
it
part.
back. Yeah.
Yeah. And then sometimes, like with a slideshow with that, I'll be like, oh, we already talked about this, and I'll skip some slides
Hmm.
because of their conversation, because of this, we did talk about it. So
Yeah.
we don't need to like bore people to death. Like that's not the goal, right? We
Yeah.
get them the information, educate. What was that? Educate, and we just want to,
Understanding, education and understanding.
yes. Yeah. So friends, um, what it says, and I listened to he on page 74, he plays he has a link to his speech that he gave, and I was listening to that right before this call. It's really good. But he says, to summarize this skill set, remember a few important things. When you're prospecting, you are the messenger, not the message. Get yourself out of the way and use a third-party tool. 2, learn to tell your story in a way that will make your prospects curious to hear more. And 3, when it comes to presenting in front of a group of people, preparation is key. When you're prepared, it's fun. And it
Yes.
is key. All right.
Definitely.
Well, work on your story. We can share our stories next week, Amy. That'll be
Okay.
fun.
I
Um,
remember you did a leader your freedom leaders call a while ago talking about the story, and there was going to be an email that went out. Could you send me that email?
yeah, I did. Yeah, because I was snarky in there and I said, if you think your story matters, you think too highly of yourself. Yay. Like we need to learn to tell our specific story, but when we sit there and play the comparison game, that's where we get in trouble. And like, mine's not as grandiose as somebody else's. Well, it's like I wanted to make money while being at home with my kids, but also doing something that helped other people.
Hmm.
It's a great story,
Yeah.
right? Like you have to be like, I was dying and looking for a
Yeah.
cure everywhere, and now I'm alive. Like, you know, oh, not Harvey. Toby Detweiler. His
Yeah.
story is wild. And you hear his personal, like he was dying.
Yeah.
He also, it was like some like testicular cancer or something. So I'm never gonna have his story. But
Nor do you want it.
I know, right? Um, but like we know his story. We can share his story. But the thing is to connect with people authentically, you have to tell your story, right? And even if you were like, I thought network marketing was below me, I'm too good for it, blah, blah, blah. Like, if that's your truth, it's gonna be powerful for you to share that.
Hmm.
If your story is, I didn't graduate the 8th grade, how am I gonna get a job?
Hmm.
That is a powerful story, and people are gonna connect to you. When you tell that story, they're gonna be like, oh my gosh, she's so vulnerable, she's so real. Like, people feel authenticity stronger than anything. So it doesn't matter like that. Judging yourself on your story is the stupid stuff. I'm sorry. Like we all do it. No, we don't all do it. Some people do it.
Yeah.
Um, but it doesn't matter how big or weird or whatever. It just needs to be authentically your story. That is the vital key, is you sharing your heart, you sharing why you said yes to this. Um, and maybe some people watching this recording, um, maybe it is a little too embarrassing if you really got down to your story. And you've been hesitant to share that, but I'm telling you, when we start ripping those scabs off and we start saying that stuff, it's going to draw our people to us. They want to be with people want real, they don't want perfect. Perfect is a lie. So,